So welcome everybody to this next episode of Revenue Hacks. I'm Ali Northfield and I'll be hosting today's session. So this is after a week off for the girls. So we all missed you, people who watch us every week, and we're really pleased to be back. So this week we're going to take a bit of a different tack. We're going to be looking at some of the headlines that have been making the news in terms of either things affecting consumers or things affecting hotels or things affecting revenue management, and then looking at those from a revenue management perspective. So we'll be looking at a review that Sharad Kapoor did recently regarding the revenue role in terms of, do we need to have a commercial strategist and what role does revenue management play in that? We'll then be looking at EasyJet pilots and their offer of flexible working, and whether or not we should be looking at something like that for the revenue management community. Then we'll be looking at the fact that the British staycation has not been as much of a joy to witness, either from a guest perspective or from a hotel perspective. And so we'll be challenging the team here about what they think about the staycation in general and the regional surge in business that we've had. And finally, from a revenue management perspective, we'll be looking at the subscription model. And so we'll be looking at some of the hotels or some hotel groups that have been using a subscription model, and trying to work out whether or not this is something that should be used in revenue management in general, or indeed is questionable and difficult to manage. So without further ado, so reviewing Sharad's piece, which was in Focusrite, he basically has, as a background, he's got experience in both revenue and sales. And he was saying that after he did a bit of research, he identified 4 key attributes that a true commercial leader needs. One is to be visionary, second, to be strategic, third, being data savvy, and fourth, being competitive. So, and he's saying that some organizations have already moved in that direction, but I think, and I know we've covered a bit about the strategic role for revenue managers previously, but the question is that when we look at the reality of revenue management, pre-COVID, for example, what revenue managers were really struggling in a way to secure a leading spot in the commercial area. So do we think that this is something that revenue managers can naturally grow into, or where are we going with this drive towards commercial leadership? Because it's being touched on everywhere at the moment. Ideas is pushing it out there. A lot of other people are looking at the revenue management role and saying it's got to be more commercial, more strategically led. So are we ready for it? Are we basically, do our revenue managers have the skills to step up? So let's, before I do this, introduce you guys. So just one more round. So Susanne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Susanne Williams. I'm the Revenue and Systems Director for Journey. We are a luxury marketing and commercial tech agency based in Cheltenham.
And Olga?
Thank you very much. My name is Olga Sommer. I'm currently Director of Revenue for Noble Portman Square Hotel, which is a new opening. I'm also a mentor, St. Julian Scholar, and also trainer on revenue management. Thank you.
And Berengere?
Hi, I'm B. I'm the founder of My.O.C. It's a revenue management consulting company helping hotels with distribution, revenue, and processes.
Okay, so back onto the question, is the revenue management role ready? Where are we going with strategic leadership? And where do you think it's going to end up? Are we ready for it?
Yes.
And why?
Well, I just think that when you look at how things are evolving with technology, with the role of the revenue manager and how data-driven they are, I think when you look to take a leadership position, then you look to use your technology, you create more space and time within your daily agenda, and you make sure that you're partnering with the GM, the leader of the business, to really make sure that you're spending in the right place, that you're targeting in the right place, and that your sales and marketing's aligned. And I think the skills of a good revenue manager naturally fit that. And if you use tech, automation, and your data as your platform, I think revenue managers have got a really good chance to move into that kind of position.
Okay, I get that, Susanne, but you're speaking from a point of reference, which is you have significant levels of skills in the marketing arena. You've got a lot of digital marketing background. You talk very easily and very in a very relaxed fashion about all these skills that people need to put together. Where's the revenue manager going to get those skills from? Basically, yeah, they might have the data. Olga, any thoughts about that? Where are we going to get this from?
Well, first of all, to answer your question, yes, we are ready, but is the market ready? Because very often, I think it really depends on the structure already been set in place. So if there is structure already in place, it's very difficult to change it. It does take a good amount of time. I think there are, as Susanne said, there are skill sets available, and it is possible. Yes, we can learn and expand our skill set, and there is a greater demand for commercial leadership, and I think I agree that it will come from revenue, but it very much still depends. Is it can it land in the right kind of platform already set up in the properties? It really depends who is the general manager. If they have a good understanding of revenue management, great, it's much easier to achieve. If not, then you have this continuous battle. It's more not even sales versus revenue, but it's about how to translate what we do in a very simple language and to translate it to the business. I think what I'm seeing is what we take as a common sense and common knowledge, it's actually not the same for everyone in the business. So I think it still needs to be done. It goes back to influencing skills and communication skills and taking the information from technology or from systems and really translating and bringing those ideas. And you almost need to be one step ahead for pushing for the ideas, because otherwise someone else will come with them.
Okay, fair enough. B, any thoughts on the general readiness? Do you think, for example, just to add to the stories so far, do you think that revenue managers need to have experience in other departments before they can work? Just to broaden that out a bit as a commercial entity?
I think they may need to have, it's not necessarily experience, but they need to be more curious about the other departments actually. And touch base on that many times, like the Stop the Silo is not only collaborating, it's also understanding the overall commercial departments and how hotels are working, etc. So I think, yes, that's what we want, but I'm actually not really sure, as Olga was saying, that the market is ready. I like discussing that a few weeks back at an event Thomas organized is with some leaders in the hospitality in the UK. The question was raised, and I think the big brands were saying, yeah, we're there, like this is what we're doing, and most of them actually have some commercial leaders, have like commercial roles or managing directors, etc. Whereas I think the smallest companies are still struggling, and it all depends about the management really. So yes, we'll get there. I think revenue managers need those skills to actually push for that also and be a little bit more out there in order to show their knowledge and make sure that they're getting to these kind of positions and have a wider influence on the businesses.
Do you think, just before we close this down, do you think that your advice would be to give to a revenue manager, given that we're saying that the brands have the opportunity in terms of the commercial role being more structured, would you suggest to a revenue manager that they have to work in a brand, or do you think it's achievable by going through via an independent? Any thoughts to anybody on that?
No, it should be available actually. It's just like about them getting I don't know, changing the mindset. I mean, hospitality is not the most modern thinking word, let's put it like that. So it's still very much based on a traditional way of thinking. Like the systems are showing it, like it's very old fashioned. Some stuff are coming, but it takes time. So I think it's about how people, new generation, will try to change this traditional way of doing hotels.
And when you, sorry. Susanne,
I'm just wondering if that's something we sit back and wait for, or whether it's something we should be actively championing. Everybody on this screen now is involved in training, support, driving the industry forward, having the conversations about amplifying and pushing revenue management. We need more of that. I think to make the commercial position viable and to offer that training and support, we need more people to shout louder about what we do and how we do it. I think that we don't sit back and just wait for the men at the top of the industry and the senior GMs to get with the programme. We should be championing it every single day.
Okay. And just one final point. So when you say traditional, do you mean like Old Boys Network, or is this
the food and beverage?
Just wanted to really clarify that. Yes. Okay. So anything else to say on that, Olga?
Could I? Yes, I wanted to add. Speaking right now to lots of businesses and current situation, it is what it is. So it seems to be a lot of hotels and chains are struggling with the cash flow. It's definitely one of the key kind of pain points. I think revenue managers could right now maybe work closely with financial control, with finance teams, maybe to bridge that gap. I think that potentially would help to drive that maybe a little bit of a change within the business. And again, show that we have expertise and knowledge to work across departments and to impact the business.
Okay, fair enough. So moving on from that, in terms of just sort of segueing a little bit in terms of the offer that EasyJet pilots received this week, that they were offered seasonal contracts to stave off job cuts, specifically 6-month long seasonal contracts where they can fly for 6-month period and then they get the rest of the year off. Good idea for revenue managers? Would this work? Should we be looking at the role, given the fact, Olga, you've just said, the brands are in trouble. We've all got cash flow issues. What do we do? I mean, this is completely flipping the last thing on its head. So away from the strategic direction, should we actually just be called upon for times of high demand, for example, or is that a completely mad notion? Should we be more flexible?
I think potentially we could do some work in terms of high demand, but then the question, what's going to happen with long-term strategy, and that has a very long impact. Then potentially we'll cover the business in 2-3 years. So I would like to think it probably not the way we will go into as a revenue function. There are already agencies who can support with that, and also a lot of hotels that I know who are looking into a really long-term picture. They choose to actually have someone on property on site all the time. I think in terms of for the benefit of the long-term strategy, I think a revenue or commercial director should be in the business full time.
Do you think that we should be questioning the fact that a lot of the revenue management roles at the moment are being made redundant? I guess I'm kind of coming from this in a way that we can see that there is a strategic role to be played, and so I'm agreeing with everything that you say here. But equally, looking at the reality of what's happening right now, there is no cash in hotels, and a lot of revenue managers are being made redundant. So how do we stem that flow? Do we need to start to think creatively about the role, like really creatively for hotels that really can't manage? Or do we say to them, don't be so ridiculous, the one person you need is your revenue manager? Where does it go? Susanne?
I think,
sorry, Olga. No, carry on.
I think the point about flexibility, Ali, I think is spot on. Now, there is that need for the commercial role, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that if you've got a small business that is struggling and there's other roles to be fulfilled within the hotel, that a commercial person can't take that on too. I think that going back to the old days of rooms division, where you're looking after housekeeping, front office, reservations, and there's various aspects of the operation that you're au fait with, I think that's a really good position to get yourself in as a revenue manager, so that you've got that grounding for strategic commercial understanding of the business, but equally you can influence what happens on the floor. And I think that actually gives you some protection, and it's good for your overall career. Understand everything about your business and protect yourself and learn as much as you can. That would be my really strong advice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other thoughts on that in terms of just trying to be flexible with the role, or time to move on?
I think it all depends, to be honest, on the type of properties we're talking about also, because you talk to an independent small property, then yes, currently probably between a revenue manager and the sales, I tend to say they should rather get the revenue first, but long term, is it something that is sustainable? Even if we create like a more commercial role, like we each have our strengths. So I guess on some properties or some brands that may work, you may need to have your revenue managers only 3 days a week, or you may have them, I don't know, for specific periods, and you work on a strategy, and then you have some people that are implementing it on a day-to-day. But like hopefully in a few years' time, few months, let's wish, we're going to be back to normal, and then we need to make sure that the people are here and that we are prepared. And that, yeah, we haven't made a mess out of it because we just decided not to take the right people on board. So,
yeah, fair enough.
Well, just one last thing about the whole EasyJet thing, because I think the thinking around that whole innovative business way is quite dangerous for a whole workforce. The fact of the matter is, in 2019, EasyJet made £340 million worth of profit. Where did that profit go, and why now is half the workforce being put on 6-month pay? That would be my question. So if you start to think along the lines of, well, actually it's okay to work for 6 months of the year and reduce people's pay like that, what happened to all that profit?
Olga, did you want to...
Thinking more about kind of strategically, I think a lot of properties will be right now working with less workforce. So there is, maybe the titles will remain the same, and yes, potentially some of us will be still employed full time, but our roles are changing. So I think the job day-to-day will look different, whether we will be supporting sales department, maybe marketing, digital, or maybe more operational. I'm seeing impact of this already across a number of hotels where less workforce and we do different roles, and it seems to be okay. And I don't think there will be defined lines. Maybe it will be 3 days doing revenue, but I think it will be more of a combination, just less people, but you have to be quite flexible and agile what you be doing in the nearest future, let's say. But hopefully after some time it will probably stabilize.
Yeah, last point on Susanne's comment also is like profits were there, but lots of hotels also, and I know like lots of staff in hotels were like, well, we made millions. How come we just started laying off people? Like reality is, I guess the good managers or a management company are really seeing what's happening and saying that it's going to take time to recover. And if you don't want to lose more people, you just have to take actions now. And like proposing this thing from EasyJet, maybe that's not the best, but at least I guess they're trying. And I think that's what hotels also need to do, is like you don't want to go to liquidation or whatever in a few months' time because you didn't take the right decisions right now. So it's tough, but yeah, we know we all need to well.
But I think also, if I may add, they actually gave their employees or pilots, they gave them options whether they're going to choose to work 6 months and then take 6 months off, or they would work 3 days and they would have 2 days off. So I think there is an element of flexibility, and maybe that is the way to avoid redundancies. And you take they have an option to choose what is their preferred choice. And in the future, I think most of us will have maybe part-time that will pay the bills. And then with the rest of the time, we'll do something a little bit more creative, or we'll work on different projects. So 5-10 years forward, maybe it will be, especially as working from home been so successful for many businesses, I think that landscape will change.
No, fair enough. And I think also going back to Susanne's point regarding the level of profit that was made by EasyJet sort of last year, that I think a lot of people have also been questioning the hotel industry, like why is it that an industry cannot survive for more than 3 months on its cash flow alone? You know, there's a big question there, which leads me into the next article, which was a CNN travel article headlined "Overcrowded, Overpriced and Overwhelmed: The UK's COVID-19 Staycation Nightmare. Beaches strewn with waste, wild campers destroying fragile habitats, warnings from an increasingly overstretched Coast Guard, unaffordable accommodations." So the staycation nightmare, how well are we managing the British traveller? How well is the British traveller managing us? So what's gone on in this staycation? What's happened? What are your thoughts on the great British vacation?
Well, let's aim for having the Brits every year, because it seems to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I guess other countries have had us before, so now they don't have us. We've got to sort out ourselves. So yeah. Any thoughts on kind of like how it's been managed? I mean, I know I've heard mixed reactions from certainly leisure destinations and rate gouging, that kind of thing. Any thoughts on how it's being managed?
I think it's all kamikaze from, I think kamikaze is the word I would use for we knew this was coming. We knew the staycation boom was coming. but I am really curious to see if hotels have really considered the short to medium long-term pricing strategy that when they can charge £400, £500, £600 a night because it's high demand, what's going to happen to their pricing come January? You know, what's happening to the reputation? What's the consumer expectation in terms of price versus value? Has it really been considered? It's fine to make hay whilst the sun shines, but for me, it's not the right way forward. And equally, I think it shines a big light into what an absolute disgrace the UK infrastructure, management, tourism really is. It needs funding, it needs support, and it really needs sorting out.
I think it's been great to see really in the British traveling in Britain, etc., and the French in France, etc. So we've seen that in every single countries, which I think has been like long term is going to be great for each of the domestic markets, because I see and we were discussing earlier that it seems to be sustainable. We have already seen some bookings in the overcoming few months. This was not just only a summer thing, so this is great. Now it's about realizing who this new customer is also, which lots of properties like they don't know, because that's not a market that we used to have. So it's getting used to it, target the right ones. And in terms of the hotels, well, they're bringing money, so we need to recognize that. Now we need to be also selective, and as you were saying, Susanne, like making sure that your reputation is not damaged, whether you increase your price way too high, for example, or if you smash your pricing. This is not the right solution either, but we need to make sure that we're targeting the right within this domestic market. There are different profiles, so we need to target the right segment, if I can say like that.
Okay. And so a lot of hotels are worried that the business is going to just drop off a cliff the minute people go back to work, or the minute that children go back to school. Do any of you have any feedback from the market in terms of what you're seeing at the moment in either your own hotels or the hotels that you work with from a client perspective? How's Q4 looking for many of your properties at the moment?
We're seeing strong growth year on year for quarter 4. And occupancy is growing, but we look after properties where the staycation boom is we're seeing extraordinary growth in sales. So that's brilliant. But for me, making sure that that's consistent and we're capitalising on the data, we're delivering a really excellent customer experience, and making sure that the marketing machine sits behind it to bring that customer back time and time again. That's my focus right now. I think it's great that we've got this boom, and I know that my pricing is set for the mid to long term, and not just charging £500 to £700 a night for a double room in the back end of a hotel in some gorgeous area. That's not my strategy.
Fair enough.
I think it's a little bit early yet to say for London, because for London, according to last report from STR, we're receiving more cancellations than new bookings. So, and the booking window is very short right now. I'm expecting once we see children go back to school, I'm expecting London to pick up some business. I think it will keep very close eye on September and October, because that will show how actually much business or little the London or city centres will get. And that will give us an idea possibly for Q1 next year. And I would expect maybe September and October will be time when we'll see a slight shift between provinces and London, slightly kind of stabilizing. Staycations will still be going strong for Q4, and it just reflects what just Susanne said. But hopefully London or other city destinations will get a little bit of their market share, and maybe some domestic corporate travel will start traveling as well.
I think
helping more city hotels, and unfortunately that's in some of them in Europe it's coming back, some of them in the US are actually pretty okay, but it's very fragile. It all depends on the government decisions basically, and some properties are not open yet, and some properties are thinking about reclosing actually, so because the business is not there. So I guess like in every summer, every August, end of August, everybody's freaking out because there's no pickup for September, October, etc. Like more of the corporate hotels basically. this is the case this year and even more, because this time we actually don't know if it's going to come back. So the next 2 weeks, I think, are going to give us a better idea whether, as you were just saying, like domestic corporates are going to be a little bit back. We know it's not going to be amazing, but I think, yeah, we're just hanging there and checking what's happening.
And do we have any feel for how well London is performing in comparison to the pickup in other international markets, like compared to Paris or Barcelona? Anybody can anybody give any feedback in terms of how well we're doing on that? Any market indications?
Yeah, Spain is bad. Barcelona and Madrid are really bad. Amsterdam has done really good, but the last 2 weeks, basically, kids are back to school. There are some new regulations in place, so it's slowing down, but it's there. Germany's been pretty good. The Nordics have been okay-ish. So London is really... Yeah, London is really struggling. London and Dublin, basically, I would say, in the European biggest cities, are the ones where it's much slower.
Yeah, I think people are generally surprised at the lack of pickup in London. It's, I mean, for such a huge city, the reliance, as Nora's just pointed out in the chat, we are hugely reliant on the international business. I have actually seen a lot of hotels regionally getting pickup from corporates that want to have strategic meetings. They want to be able to encourage people to come back to work, but having like team meetings outside of the cities just to encourage people just to get back into offices. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, I think. So moving on from the staycation, which and another point in from Ina, thank you, Ina Nekrasova, who mentioned she's just come back from holiday and she feels that a lot of this is kind of sensationalization in the press, which I hope it is, but we do know that in some cases, in some areas, it has been pretty horrible in terms of trying to either get on the road or get off the road or get in the hotel, etc. Last item just here, just quickly, picked up on a hotel group, Selina, capitalizing on a focus on live work accommodation, and they have a subscription model. So this is more of a revenue management question. So subscription models, so they have the option for members to purchase 30, 60 or 90 night credits, or they can take a 1, 3 or 6 month stay, or indeed they can purchase either 1 to 12 month stays across the board. And apparently these subscriptions can be redeemed at any time in any location of the Selina group. So any thoughts on the subscription model in general that you'd advise? Should we all be moving to a subscription model and trying to encourage new segments to come to our hotels? Any thoughts on that? Don't all answer at once.
I think Selina, they position themselves as like the nomad traveler, nomad worker since the beginning. So they were in a good position to do that already. Yeah, why not? I mean, in reality, we're talking about not people working from home, but people working from anywhere. So is this something that we would like to do? Yeah, if you know a hotel brand, I mean, that works better with the brands, I guess. But if you know your hotel brand, you like it, they are from Central America, yeah, why not? You go there for 3 months, you have your subscription, you pay almost like a small fee. This is long stays. That's pretty cool. I think one of the market that could be really good to tap in also is potentially all the students or workers that are going abroad, etc., and that's going to come back, and you can do more of a 30 days, 60 days stays. That may work. So shifting more into co-living, basically, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost. I think that's a key point that Berengere identified. It's that the way they position, they're not really hotel where you pay for the subscription, but there are other countries, destinations, Estonia, Bermuda Islands, they're all encouraging to move there to work kind of remotely. So that potentially is a key to get it right. I think other subscription, Susanne had another example, but I remember that club hotels and also Park Plaza hotels sometime were offering to buy properties, to buy a hotel that they could rent out. But I think it was maybe 7-10 years ago, and I don't see it kind of on the market anymore. So maybe that didn't necessarily work out the best way, but that was based in London. So I think destination where we're discussing that could work is different from city locations. And I think there is a bigger discussion right now that prices on the properties for outside cities are actually on the rise, where in city centers are dropping. So it's more links to where right now we'll be feeling comfortable to live and work and so on and so forth.
Okay, fair point. Susanne, any thoughts on the model itself?
I like the model. I think in principle, subscription models do work quite well for businesses. I think you could also expand it out into workplace. You know, if you've got a hotel that's got space for people to have workstations, I think you could expand it out to that as well, make it a little bit more flexible. In principle, yes, I think it's a good idea and can be managed from a revenue management perspective.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think certainly the idea of the subscription model is very much the fact that if you were to pay on a regular basis, imagine just as you pay for a subscription to a magazine, so you pay a fee on a regular basis, and then the redemption of that subscription is obviously typically where you can make or break the model. So typically people don't redeem as much as they perhaps are allowed to, and that's where there's potentially a revenue opportunity. I think technically some of there might be a challenge with managing it, managing how much somebody's actually accumulated in terms of room nights might be a little bit more than we can manage simply at the moment. So any questions from the audience? No, I don't see there are any questions from that. So any thoughts, just moving on from today, from a last thought from each of you on where we think the industry is going to go just before we call it a day today? Where are we going to be moving to in the nearest future?
It will look very different. And on the subscription point, that idea is probably, that will at least generate the cash flow. And maybe it is the solution for some businesses.
Yeah, fair enough. B, any thoughts on kind of any
I
of the things?
I think we'll have to be more creative. I mean, we kept on saying that, but this is really the point where we have to show that we're creative and thinking about new ways of working. This is definitely going to be different. So let's rethink it. I was reading last time someone saying that their segmentation, for example, was made on maximization. So it was about like, when you're full, like this is the segmentation that we have. Now we have a low occupancy. So how does it look like? How do we target more people? And I think that's where we really need to put our thoughts. And
finally, Susanne.
Kind of just backing up what B said there, I think that hotels have to be more innovative and more agile, and the targeting of your guests and how you work, your message and your experience is going to be imperative. But my final thing would be that whilst you've seen a lot of staycation boom, we always have to remember that there's still a massive risk there that this could come back, and to be prepared that, yes, we're in a bit of a honeymoon of staycation booms. I know that we certainly are, but when I'm speaking to my hotels, I'm saying whatever we do, we have got to bear in mind, build in this contingency and be aware that it could just fall off a cliff again. So proceed with caution's my advice.
Yeah. Okay, so that's so just to summarize, so looking forward into the near future, lots of creativity, and I think we did actually touch upon the fact that we have a huge strategic role to play within revenue management, but also there is the requirement for some properties and within some business models to be really creative about how we supply the revenue management service, if you like. And then I think the key thing to take away is that sort of like that level of creativity in business models, and the fact that we are maybe seeing a little bit more in terms of the leisure market extending the booking window way into October and November, but as you say, Susanne, that's not guaranteed. So we need to hopefully just manage this fragile situation and move forward with caution. So that's all from us today. Don't forget to fill out the WHTT survey. So the link is there on the screen at the moment. So womenhoteltraveltech.com/survey, and we'll see you next week. And that's all from us today. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.